Okay, are we more or less everybody here? I hope nobody's got caught in the rain, but it's nice to see it, isn't it? Okay, today, Twelfth Night. Now, As You Like It and Twelfth Night are generally considered to have been written around the same time, although we've got no certain knowledge of what the date of composition is for either of them, or indeed even which one was written first. We do know that Twelfth Night was performed on February the 2nd, 1602, but that's Candlemas, not Twelfth Night, so it's unlikely that it was written specifically for that date. But basically what we have is two plays written in the final years of Elizabeth's reign, both with strong central female characters and both involving that character disguising herself as a young man. And as I mentioned yesterday, this type of comedy is sometimes seen as typical of Shakespeare, although it already had a long theatrical tradition by the time he was writing. With Twelfth Night, in fact, Shakespeare returns to a plot device that he first used in A Comedy of Errors, and which ultimately derives from Plautus Menaechmi, a standard school text in the 16th century. The original plot involves identical twins who are separated at birth, who grow up in ignorance of each other's existence, and the comedy derives from mistaken identities when they end up in the same town later in life. Shakespeare in The Comedy of Errors actually doubles it by having the twins have twin servants who also have been separated at birth. Now, with Twelfth Night, Shakespeare retains the idea of twins, but with two important differences. The twins are of opposite sexes, so not identical, and they are not separated until shortly before the opening of the play. The fact that they are of opposite sexes, of course, makes the resolution of the whole love tangle possible, and the fact that Viola grows up with Sebastian makes it easier for her to impersonate a man and to be, she models herself on Sebastian, so when Sebastian appears, he gets taken for Cesario. Now, I'm saying love tangle rather than love triangle here because it's not quite triangular, even though initially only actually 3 people are involved. Unlike As You Like It, much of the love in Twelfth Night is unrequited, largely because it's misdirected. Orsino loves Olivia, but she doesn't return his love, ostensibly because she's taken a vow to mourn her brother for 7 years. But it seems also that she just doesn't love him, and there's nothing she can do about it. Viola loves Orsino, but he's not aware of her love because she is in disguise as the male Cesario. Olivia loves Cesario, who does not return her love because he is in fact the female Viola. The whole thing is uneven, and the solution, of course, is to add Sebastian to take Cesario's place, with the result that Orsino can then redirect his love to Viola, who does requite it. But it's going to take a while to get to that point, otherwise we don't have much of a play. Now, the comedy of mistaken identity that we see in Plautus or in The Comedy of Errors becomes much more subtle in Twelfth Night. The mere fact that Olivia falls in love with a woman disguised as a man is less comic here than, for instance, Phoebe's infatuation with Ganymede. And Orsino's willingness to switch his affections from Olivia to Viola at the end of the play is less satisfying than Orlando's reunion with Rosalind at the end of As You Like It, or for some people possibly even than the remarkably sudden love of Celia and Oliver. The real comedy comes in characters mistaking not others' identities but their own. Now, the play opens with Orsino's very famous speech about music and love. If music be the food of love, play on, give me excess of it, that surfeiting the appetite may sicken and so die. That strain again. It had a dying fall. Oh, it came o'er my ear like the sweet sound that breathes upon a bank of violets, stealing and giving odor. Enough, no more. 'Tis not so sweet now as it was before. O spirit of love, how quick and fresh art thou, that notwithstanding thy capacity receiveth as the sea, not enters there of what validity and pitch soe'er, but falls into abatement and low price, even in a minute. So full of shapes is fancy, that it alone is high fantastical. Now, sighing as you listen to music is less active than writing poetry, but Orsino's behavior here is like Orlando's in As You Like It. Both are seeking ways of expressing their emotions, and both are following culturally prescribed ways of doing so. Yet generations of critics and students, particularly students, have condemned Orsino for being in love with love or in love with the idea of love because of speeches like this. Now, this phrase has a long history. It goes back to 1850, where the critic G.G. Gervinus said that Orsino was more in love with his love than with his mistress. But it's a thing that you see over and over and over again in student essays without any questioning, and the minute students take something for granted, it's time to start questioning it. And it's got to be less simple than it appears. The problem may not be that Orsino is in love with love, but that he is trying to work out exactly what love is. Now, that's not to say that Orsino doesn't wallow in his emotions a bit. His focus is certainly on his own experience, his own suffering. I've compared him to Orlando, but in some ways he resembles Silvius even more. Consider how they talk about themselves. Orsino sets himself up as a model of all true lovers. Come hither, boy. If ever thou shalt love, in the sweet pangs of it remember me. For such as I am, all true lovers are, unstayed and skittish in all motions else, save in the constant image of the creature that is beloved. And Silvius presents his behavior as the only valid proof that one is in love. And of course, he flatly refuses to believe that anyone now old can really know what being in love is. No, Corin, being old, thou canst not guess, though in thy youth thou wast as true a lover as ever sighed upon a midnight pillow. But if thy love were ever like to mine, as sure I think did never man love so, how many actions most ridiculous hast thou been drawn to by thy fantasy? Into 1,000 that I have forgotten. Oh, thou didst then never love so heartily. If thou rememberedst not the slightest folly that ever love did make thee run into, thou hast not loved. Or if thou hast not sat, as I do now, wearying thy hearer in thy mistress' praise, thou hast not loved. Or if thou hast not broke from company abruptly, as my passion now makes me, thou hast not loved. Oh, Phoebe, Phoebe, Phoebe. Orsino and Silvius also differ from Orlando in that there's no real obstacle to their love, except for the rather inconvenient one that it is unrequited. Neither of them seems to consider this a permanent obstacle. Orsino's choice of Olivia as a marriage partner is perfectly rational. They are at the top of Illyrian society, and with her brother's death, she would become a significant heiress. Orsino's emotional outpourings may perhaps be an attempt to hide from himself the fact that this marriage would be a pragmatic, worldly match, not a romantic fairy tale. It is Olivia's behavior in not requiting Orsino's love that seems irrational. We've seen several examples of unrequited love in the plays we've looked at this week. Not counting love induced by fairy magic, we have Demetrius's for Hermia, Helena's for Demetrius, Silvius's for Phoebe, Phoebe's for Ganymede, Orsino's for Olivia, Olivia's for Cesario, and Viola's for Orsino. Most of these fall under the head of doting, but there's broadly speaking, a gender difference between them as well. When the women are doing the doting, the obstacles to their affection tend to be more serious than simply that the other person doesn't requite their affections. Phoebe and Olivia have both fallen for a woman in disguise, and Viola can't let Orsino know that she is a woman in disguise. Helena is the exception, but her doting is described as the most extreme, and she herself points out that she has taken on a male role by pursuing one who doesn't return her love. Run when you will, the story shall be changed. Apollo flies and Daphne holds the chase. The dove pursues the griffin, the mild hind makes speed to catch the tiger. Fie, Demetrius, your wrongs do set a scandal on my sex. We cannot fight for love as men may do. We should be wooed, and we're not made to woo. I'll follow thee and make a heaven of hell to die upon the hand I love so well. Helena, like Orsino, is in love with someone that it would be perfectly acceptable for her to marry, and indeed someone whose failure to requite her love is in fact an aberration in his behavior. Demetrius loved her before he loved Hermia, and thanks to the love flower, he returns to his first love. And like Orsino and Demetrius and Silvius, she apparently feels that pursuit of the beloved will succeed, and that it is the role of the male to pursue the female. Orsino certainly seems to be unwilling to take no for an answer, and his advice to Cesario suggests that he thinks he can pester Olivia into falling in love with him. Therefore, good youth, address thy gate unto her. Be not denied access. Stand at her doors and tell them, there thy fixed foot shall grow till thou have audience. Sure, my noble lord, if she be so abandoned to her sorrow as it is spoke, she never will admit me. Be clamorous and leap all civil bounds rather than make unprofited return. Leap all civil bounds. If patient persistence doesn't win her over, a man can always try rudeness. The female characters, on the other hand, have fewer options. Olivia is chastised, even within the play, as a fool because she has vowed to spend all her time mourning her brother and will admit no kind of suit, no, not the Duke's. This decision has a number of implications. In the first place, it means that Orsino, like Orlando in his poetic phase, has no visible human focus for his love and enables him to consider it only abstractly, focusing on his own emotion rather than an actual relationship. It also is the reason that Viola has to adopt male attire. Her first and eminently practical suggestion was that she should approach Olivia, whose bereavement is so like her own apparent one, for sympathy and protection. It's only when she finds out that Olivia's vow prevents her from doing so that she comes up with the alternative plan of disguising herself and serving Orsino. Male disguise is not liberating for Viola in the same way that it is for Rosalind. Where Rosalind can, by pretending to be Ganymede, who is pretending to be Rosalind, teach Orlando to look at love in real life, not just his dreams, Viola can only suggest to Orsino that the world may not work the way he wants it to. But if she cannot love you, sir, I cannot so be answered. Sooth, but you must. Say some lady, as perhaps there is, hath for your love as great a pang of heart as you have for Olivia. You cannot love her, you tell her so. Must she not then be answered? Viola offers a hypothetical but very specific case for Orsino's consideration, more specific and less hypothetical than he realizes, as we know that she speaks of herself. But he immediately makes it a general and abstract question of the superiority of masculine passion to feminine. There is no woman's sides can bide the beating of so strong a passion as love doth give to my heart. No woman's heart so big to hold so much. They lack retention. Make no compare between that love a woman can bear me and that I owe Olivia. Now, Viola nearly gives herself away in her earnest desire to convince him that a woman can love as deeply as a man, that in faith they are as true of heart as we. Her sad story of her father's daughter, who loved a man, as it might be perhaps, were I a woman, I should your lordship, offers again a specific example to counter Orsino's generalizations. It also shows the difference between the male and female approaches to unrequited love. And what's her history? A blank, my lord. She never told her love, but let concealment like a worm in the bud feed on her damask cheek. She pined in thought, and with a green and yellow melancholy, she sat like patience on a monument, smiling at grief. Was not this love indeed? We men may say more, swear more, but indeed our shows are more than will, for still we prove much in our vows, but little in our love. What women's silence signifies has been a question throughout the plays we have looked at this week. Men have felt that they could interpret it, as in the case of Lucentio and Bianca, or Claudio and Hero. Women who choose to speak, like Katharina or Beatrice, have risked being labeled shrews. Female characters only really have the opportunity to define the meaning of their silence, or indeed their lack of it, when disguised as men. Rosalind, as Ganymede, argues not only for the right of women to speak, but the necessity of it when she says, "But only to another woman, do you not know that I am a woman, when I think I must speak?" Viola here revalues women's silence not as acquiescence and obedience, which is the interpretation the male characters tend to put on it, but as patient endurance, which makes the men's speeches and vows look hollow by comparison. Orsino, like Claudio, does his wooing by proxy. Claudio's proxy, however, is of higher rank than himself and takes on the role we assume because of Claudio's lack of self-confidence. Orsino, on the other hand, employs servants to do his wooing for him and does not seem to lack confidence in his ultimate success. Now, his use of servants is presumably to protect him from the indignity of being turned away at Olivia's door. But both Claudio and Orsino run the risk that their messenger will prove more attractive than they are. Claudio, Leonato, and others easily believe that Don Pedro is wooing Hero for himself. Her silence, however, gives us no clue whether she will accept him as her father wishes her to, or, as Beatrice suggests, make another curtsy and say, "Father, as it please me." Now, Hero's case is different from Olivia's, we assume, because we suspect that she's already in love with Claudio. Olivia is not persuaded by Orsino's words, or even by Cesario's account of how Orsino loves her, with adorations, fertile tears, and with groans that thunder love, with sighs of fire, which sound impressive, and these are all conventional signs of love, but they're not necessarily proof. And although adorations, tears, groans, and sighs may indicate that a person is in love, they don't compel the beloved to return that love. Olivia can recognize Orsino's good qualities, but for her these just aren't enough. "Your lord doth know my mind. I cannot love him. Yet I suppose him virtuous, know him noble, of great estate, of fresh and stainless youth, in voices well divulged, free, learned, and valiant, and in dimension and the shape of nature a gracious person. But yet I cannot love him." He might have took his answer long ago. Excuse me. Olivia can't explain why she doesn't love Orsino, but she doesn't. Love, in other words, is irrational. Even with all of Orsino's good qualities, which would be of profound importance in a marriage partner, Olivia finds something lacking. Some interpretations of the play assume that Olivia considers Orsino's love to be insincere, although I think this runs the risk of making Olivia too omniscient and Orsino too shallow. What is lacking in Orsino's wooing, or at least in Olivia's experience of it, I think, is his own voice. Cesario's reporting of Orsino's emotions has no effect. It is only when Viola begins to put her own emotions into her speeches that Olivia is moved by them. You want to come up? "If I did love you in my master's flame with such a suffering, such a deadly life, in your denial I would find no sense. I would not understand it."
"Why, what would you?"
"Make me a willow cabin at your gate and call upon my soul within the house. Write loyal cantons of contemned love and sing them loud, even in the dead of night. Halloo your name to the reverberate hills and make a babbling gossip of the air. Cry out, 'Olivia!' Oh, you should not rest between the elements of air and earth, but you should pity me."
"You might do much."
Viola's proposed strategy here would seem, at first sight, to be in line with the kind of wooing that Orsino advocates, the persistent and vocal type. But is this really what makes the difference? We might consider for a moment just how annoying loyal cantons of contemned love would be sung loudly at 3 a.m. What comes through the speech, though, is the idea of the suffering of the lover, the need for pity, the need to express a pain that is almost unendurable. That is what Olivia responds to, and it is Viola's emotion, not Orsino's, that has this effect. Despite all the activity in the imagery, the building of the willow cabin, the writing of the loyal cantons, despite all the sound imagery, calling, singing, hallooing, babbling, the overall effect is of stillness. Like the image of patience on the monument, we feel that we are looking at a statue, or even more likely in the period, an emblem in a book. What appeals to Olivia and Cesario is the expression of a genuine, direct emotion. This is probably a rather a new experience for her. Even if we give Orsino the benefit of the doubt and say that his emotion at this stage is genuine, even if not permanent, he can hardly be said to speak directly to her. Most of his instructions to Cesario, even, are general in nature. Oh, then unfold the passion of my love. Surprise her with the discourse of my dear faith. The most direct message he sends is reassuring on a practical level rather than an emotional. Tell her my love, more noble than the world, prizes not quantity of dirty lands. The parts that fortune hath bestowed on her, tell her I hold as giddily as fortune. But 'tis that miracle and queen of gems that nature pranks her in, attracts my soul. Even in attempting to convince her of the noble disinterestedness of his love, Orsino can't help reminding her what a suitable match it would be. As for the persistent pestering approach, Olivia can see that in her own house. Don't forget that she has more than one suitor. There is her uncle, Sir Toby Belch's candidate, Sir Andrew Aguecheek, a foolish knight brought in one night here to be her wooer. Even Sir Andrew doesn't rate his chances much. Faith, I'll home tomorrow, Sir Toby. Your niece will not be seen, or if she be, it's 4-1 she'll none of me. The Count himself here hard by woos her. She'll none of the Count. She'll not match above her degree, neither in estate, years, nor wit. I have heard her swear it. Sir Andrew serves primarily as a clown, a butt for Sir Toby, but he also serves as a foil to Orsino. Before we condemn Orsino for lack of self-knowledge or for being self-absorbed, both of which accusations have been made, we need to look at Sir Andrew. Sir Toby reassures Sir Andrew that Olivia is not interested in Orsino, who is, of course, socially a much better match than Sir Andrew. She'll not match above her degree, neither in estate, years, nor wit. Now, Sir Toby may well be making this up for Sir Andrew's benefit, but it's not implausible. After all, Olivia is attracted to Cesario and marries Sebastian. Orsino is older and higher ranking than both, although I'm not so sure about the wit. Certainly Cesario, to whom Olivia is attracted, is a match for her in wit. I suspect the wit part was added for Sir Andrew's benefit. He at least can qualify as just about anybody's inferior in wit. Now, if Olivia did vow not to marry above her degree, it could be as much a ploy to get around the simple fact that she specifically doesn't want to marry Orsino as her vow to mourn her brother for 7 years. But it does give the other males hope, which brings us to Malvolio. Sir Andrew, at least, is on paper not an impossible match for Olivia. It would be an upward marriage for him, but not a demeaning one for her on a purely material level and totally discounting personalities. It would be no more remarkable socially than her actual marriage to Sebastian. But Malvolio is a slightly different story. For Malvolio to marry Olivia would be a seriously upward move for him. All the advantage of the match, in worldly terms, would be on his side. Olivia is above him socially, she is wealthy, and of course she is young and beautiful as well. His chances would appear to be non-existent, but even before he finds Maria's letter, he is considering the possibility of marrying Olivia. 'Tis but fortune, all is fortune. Maria once told me she did affect me, and I have heard her herself come thus near, that should she fancy, it should be one of my complexion. Besides, she uses me with a more exalted respect than anyone else that follows her. What should I think on't? There is example for it. The lady of the stray key married the yeoman of the wardrobe. Marriage to Olivia would mean, for Malvolio, power and wealth. Olivia, in his daydream, is a secondary figure, left on a daybed sleeping. He imagines more vividly the officers, the ornamented gown, the rich jewel he will play with, and particularly the humor of state and what he will say to Sir Toby. Marrying Olivia is a way of scoring off the other male characters. She's a trophy. Malvolio also serves as a foil for Orsino. You will remember that Orsino expressly stated that he was not interested in Olivia's wealth, only in herself. The same can't be said for Malvolio, but they are similar as well. Orsino's focus on his own emotion as the overriding consideration, not Olivia's, is possibly caricatured in Malvolio's self-love. Even Olivia rebukes him for it earlier in the play. Oh, you are sick of self-love, Malvolio, and taste with a distempered appetite. To be generous, guiltless, and of free disposition is to take those things for bird bolts that you deem cannonballs. When, later in the same scene, she describes Orsino's good qualities, as I quoted earlier, there are possibly echoes of this passage. Orsino has the good qualities that Malvolio lacks, and his self-love is not as far advanced as Malvolio's, and this is important. We must never feel that it's impossible to fall in love with Orsino. Otherwise, we wouldn't want Viola to love him. At the same time, we need to feel that Olivia is not unreasonable in her ability to love him. As with Demetrius, we need to forgive him when he does fall in love with the right girl. Malvolio's actual courtship of Olivia also has to be seen as a comparison with the other courtships in the play, especially Orsino's. In the first place, Malvolio, as Olivia's social inferior and servant, can't use the same method as Orsino does, messengers constantly reminding her that he loves her, or that Cesario imagines, willow cabins, loud love songs outside her window at all hours. But the basic principle of courtship remains the same, to attract Olivia's attention and sympathy, and then to work that up into love. Even Sir Andrew knows that he has to stay at Olivia's house if he is to have any chance. To go home is to give up. Because of his social standing, Malvolio has to wait for some indication from Olivia before he dares to do more than dream. But his self-love makes him a very ready victim of Maria's letter. Although he struggles with the verse, especially the fact that the letters M-O-A-I are in the wrong order, he has no difficulty at all in applying the postscript to himself. If this fall into thy hand, revolve. In my stars I am above thee, but be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Thy fates open their hands, let thy blood and spirit embrace them, and to inure thyself to what thou art like to be, cast thy humble slough and appear fresh. Be opposite with a kinsman, surly with servants. Let thy tongue tang arguments of state. Put thyself into the trick of singularity. She thus advises thee that sighs for thee. Remember who commended thy yellow stockings and wished to see thee ever cross-gartered. I say, remember. Go to, thou art made if thou desirest to be so. If not, let me see thee a steward still, the fellow of servants, and not worthy to touch fortune's fingers. If thou entertainst my love, let it appear in thy smiling. Thy smiles become thee well. Therefore in my presence still smile, dear my sweet, I prithee. There's a story of one production where Malvolio was a very serious character, and when he read this, watching him try a smile, they said, well, you could practically see the ice crackling on his face as he tried it. So a lot of the comedy is in seeing Malvolio trying to be something he just really isn't. And there's a wide range of interpretations of this. Now, Maria makes it clear that not only Olivia, I think I had one more slide, no. Maria makes it clear that not only Olivia has not given Malvolio any basis at all for believing any of this, but that the instructions will actually go against her preferences. If you will then see the fruits of the sport, mark his first approach before my lady. He will come to her in yellow stockings, and 'tis a colour she abhors, and cross-gartered, a fashion she detests, and he will smile upon her, which will now be so unsuitable to her disposition, being addicted to a melancholy as she is, that it cannot but turn him into a notable contempt. Malvolio then, like Orsino, is projecting onto Olivia his own image of love, his belief that because he wants her to regard him in a certain way, she will inevitably eventually do so. In Orsino's case, it fails because, although Olivia is moved by Cesario's picture of suffering, unrequited love, her emotional response is directed at Cesario rather than Orsino. Malvolio intends the cross-gartered yellow stockings and smiling to act for him in the same way as Orsino's messages or Cesario's love songs. All three point out how much they are suffering for Olivia's sake. And this brings up one of the fundamental paradoxes and problems of the whole courtship convention. The man is supposed to suffer as a result of his love, to accept humbly and patiently whatever his lady orders, not asking any reward, but hoping always for her pity. Fine, but what if she doesn't even notice? Malvolio, like Orsino, wants Olivia to be aware of his devotion. And here's a picture of Stephen Fry as Malvolio and Mark Rylance as Olivia at the Globe Theatre. And there's what cross-gartering looks like. And the next one. I'm doing Malvolio here, by the way, and he's Olivia. Okay, so sweet lady, ho ho.
Smilest thou? I sent for thee upon a sad occasion.
Sad, lady? I could be sad. This does make some obstruction in the blood, this cross-gartering, but what of that? If it please the eye of one, it is with me, as the very true sonnet is, please one and please all.
Why, how dost thou, man? What is the matter with thee?
Not black in my mind, though yellow in my legs. It did come to his hands, and command shall be executed. I think we do know the sweet Roman hand.
Wilt thou go to bed, Malvolio?
To bed? Aye, sweetheart, and I'll come to thee. If, as we are told in As You Like It, love is merely a madness, then so is going around smiling in yellow cross-gartered stockings. Olivia, dumbfounded by Malvolio's behavior, concludes that this is very midsummer madness. She had, of course, been primed to think so by Maria, who had warned her at the beginning of the scene that Malvolio was mad. He does nothing but smile. Your ladyship were best to have some guard about you if he come, for sure the man is tainted in his wits. Most of the characters in the play, indeed, seem to be more or less tainted in their wits, either by love, melancholy, drink, vanity, or natural folly. Olivia sees herself as mad because she is melancholy. I am as mad as he, if sad and merry madness equal be. Sebastian, in Act 4, can only think that either Olivia is mad or he is, when Olivia, complete stranger, declares her love for him. Olivia moves from melancholy madness, the grief for her brother, which even the fool condemns as foolishly excessive, to love madness, in which she takes on the masculine role of wooer and pursuer. She herself is astonished at the rapidity with which she falls in love. Not too fast, soft, soft. Unless the master were the man? How now? Even so quickly may one catch the plague? Methinks I feel this youth's perfections with an invisible and subtle stealth to creep in at mine eyes. Sending a ring after Cesario is also a mad thing to do. It compromises Olivia. It puts Cesario in the very awkward situation, as we later see, of being suspected of treason towards his master. And of course, it is an impossible situation for Viola, who sums up the problem. None of my lord's ring? Why, he sent her none. I am the man. If it be so, as 'tis, poor lady, she were better love a dream. Disguise, I see thou art a wickedness, wherein the pregnant enemy does much. How easy is it for the proper false in women's waxen hearts to set their forms. Alas, our frailty is the cause, not we, for such as we are made of, such we be. How will this fadge? My master loves her dearly, and I, poor monster, fond as much on him, and she, mistaken, seems to dote on me. What will become of this? As I am a man, my state is desperate for my master's love. As I am a woman, now alas the day, what thriftless sighs shall poor Olivia breathe? Oh, time, thou must untangle this, not I. It is too hard a knot for me to untie. Note the different words here for the passions of the different characters. Orsino loves her dearly. Viola is fond as much on him. Fond carries with it a suggestion of foolishness, or at least less hope. And Olivia seems to dote, that is, her love cannot be requited. Although Olivia took action by sending the ring, she sees herself as passive, controlled by fate. At the same time, she uses the idea of a controlling fate to justify her taking action to make events go the way she wants. I don't have that one on the side. Fate, show thy force, ourselves we do not owe. What is decreed must be, and be this so. She's manipulating things a bit there. This would appear to be in line with the stereotype of passive female, active male, that is the expected pattern. But all three of the marriages in the play, the third one being that of Sir Toby to Maria, are the result of action on the part of the female characters, and in some sense a reward for their taking an active role. This is easiest to see in the Sir Toby-Maria match. Maria instigates the whole letter plot against Malvolio. This is the direct cause of Sir Toby marrying her. He declares immediately after he has seen Malvolio reading the letter that I could marry this wench for this device and ask no other dowry with her but such another jest. And at the end of the play, this is what we learn that he has done. Now, Maria, as a waiting gentlewoman, is socially more or less Sir Toby's equal, and evidently he appreciates that she is his superior in wit. The match is no more uneven than the other two, and productions that present her as a low-class serving wench on the par with those in tavern scenes fail to understand Elizabethan social gradations. A woman of Olivia's status would have gentlewomen waiting on her. They would still be of a sort of upper middle class status. The difference between Olivia's and Viola's speeches that I quoted a moment ago is that although Olivia seems to be passive, ascribing events to fate, she's actually using fate to justify her own action in sending the ring to Cesario. Fate, in other words, is responsible for her falling in love with Cesario, but she isn't just going to sit around and hope he notices her. And of course, her action precipitates the crisis and the resolution of the play. At the same time, Sebastian becomes a much more passive character who reacts to those he encounters but doesn't try to find out why they all seem to think they know him. If they want to fight, he is prepared to fight, but he doesn't ask questions. And when faced with Olivia, to him a strange woman who gives him jewels and wants to marry him, he is puzzled and he thinks he or she must be mad, but he doesn't resist. In fact, he's a bit like Bottom with Titania. Like Viola, he's willing to let time untie the knot. In the final scene, Shakespeare, as he so often does, brings all the characters back on stage to sort out all or most of the loose ends. This is the first time, as far as we know, that Orsino speaks directly to Olivia during his entire courtship of her. And despite her insistence on keeping their marriage secret, Olivia gives away her preference for Cesario almost immediately. Olivia's rejection this time, at least, finally convinces Orsino, but his reaction is, as it frequently is, self-consciously focused on how his actions express the intensity of his emotions. He sees Olivia's behavior as uncivil and ingrate for rejecting his faithfulest offerings that ere devotion tendered. In other words, he claims that his devotion of the value of his love must be universally accepted. When he asks, "What shall I do?" it isn't a completely rhetorical question. Olivia's answer, tactful as it is, combines a reminder of his duty to his status and himself with an acknowledgement of his undoubted power. Even what it please my lord, that shall become him. Orsino's speech is an imagining of different options, trying them out, as it were, to see what looked best on him. Why should I not, had I the heart to do it, like to the Egyptian thief at point of death, kill what I love? A savage jealousy that sometimes savors nobly. But hear me this, since you to non-regardance cast my faith, and that I partly know the instrument that screws me from my true place in your favor, leave you the marble-breasted tyrant still. But this your minion, whom I know you love, and whom by heaven I swear I tender dearly, him will I tear out of that cruel eye where he sits crowned in his master's spite. Come, boy, with me, my thoughts are ripe in mischief. I'll sacrifice the lamb that I do love to spite the raven's heart within a dove. Orsino is looking for some action, something to do that will express his emotion, and he can't think of anything that isn't destructive. The speech also reveals to us his affection for Cesario Viola. He's willing to kill Cesario not just because Olivia loves him, but because Orsino also loves him. Sacrificing the lamb that he loves is, for him, a sign of the nobility of his emotions. But we also see how futile his need for action is. It won't solve anything if he kills Cesario. We know that particularly because we've seen Sebastian. Sebastian's passive acceptance of Olivia's marriage proposal to, as she thinks, Cesario, breaks the deadlock caused by Olivia's love for Cesario. Viola accepts Orsino's proposal that he kill her, not just passively, but enthusiastically. And I, most jock and apt and willingly to do you rest, 1,000 deaths would die. Students and critics get very upset about Katharina's final speech in The Taming of the Shrew, where she offers to put her hand under Petruchio's foot. But no one seems bothered when Viola carries the notion of loving obedience to such an extreme as this. Fortunately, her extreme passivity is also seen as an action, in that she appears to be forsaking her wife, Olivia, who therefore speaks out and substantiates her claim on Cesario as her husband. This simultaneously saves Cesario's life, but destroys his reputation. He is now thou dissembling cub to Orsino, who nevertheless recognizes that he does not have any right to kill Olivia's husband. Antonio's earlier description of him as that most ungrateful boy, and remember Antonio is still on stage, now seems proven. The rapid arrival of Sir Andrew, the Fool, Sir Toby, and Sebastian allows the tangle to be sorted out and everyone to end up with the right partner, the only sour note being struck by Malvolio, who still demands revenge, and possibly by Antonio, who after a brief reunion with Sebastian is more or less forgotten in the general happy ending. Olivia learns that she is married not to Cesario but to Sebastian, a total stranger, although Orsino reassures her of Sebastian's nobility. Not sure how he knows, but he does reassure her. And Sebastian assures her of his chastity. And interestingly, male virginity is here prized as much as female virginity. Olivia does not speak directly to Sebastian or Orsino at this point. She has apparently retreated into feminine silence, although she speaks to Viola and others a few lines later. She does so in her capacity as lady of her household, rather than expressing any personal emotion. Orsino, interestingly, seems to have become capable of rereading Cesario's Viola. He realizes the implications of Cesario's expressions of devotion. Boy, thou hast said to me 1,000 times thou never shouldst love woman like to me. And Viola also is to have her reward. Your master quits you, and for your service done him so much against the mettle of your sex, so far beneath your soft and tender breeding. And since you called me master for so long, here is my hand. You shall from this time be your master's mistress. The course of true love, then, does not run smooth in these Shakespearean comedies. But one has to admit that the course of mistaken love is not much better. Love is, as Ganymede points out, merely a madness, but a midsummer madness that passes or at least settles down by the end of the play into marriage. Shakespeare tends not to follow his characters any further. What is important for entertainment is how they get to the marriage, not the marriage itself. Okay, thank you. Any questions anybody's got? Any questions about anything?
All the plays before these plays, not Shakespearean ones necessarily, but they all had long-winded titles that sort of give a summary of the plot. But Shakespeare's titling of the plays is very...
Shakespeare didn't care much about titles, I mean, so because you've got Twelfth Night or What You Will, or, you know, just sort of, okay, call it whatever you like, but let's get the play in production.
But I mean, this was a bit of a new thing. This was different from how things have been done.
It depends a bit on whether the play is a serious one or a tragedy or a comedy. I mean, the histories and tragedies tend to have rather longer titles. And it depends whether you're talking about what's on the playbill, you know, what they're going to, because you want to have a bit of the blurb, if you like, in the title. But the ones that get registered in the stationer's register tend to be a little bit shorter. But you've got to remember that generally titles were very long at the time. You know, even book titles go on for most of the title page.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Isn't this a departure with Shakespeare
Not
coining these little phrases?
well. It's a development, I think. He wasn't the only one doing it. You know, you've got Kids, the Spanish Tragedy and things like that. You don't get necessarily the whole plot in the title. And it depends whether you're talking about the performance or the printed version, because the printed versions, they tend to put a blurb in, you know, just like you would have on the back of a modern book that would tell you, you know, why you should be paying money for this. So, and presumably with the play, they would have, when they've got their bands being read, the crier going around and saying, and he's going to say, you know, this is a comedy and this is a, you know, it's got all the three different love stories and mistakes, and come see the woman disguised as a man, all these things that would get the audience through the doors. Yeah.
There seems to be a dark note about Malvolio, especially the treatment of him at the end.
Definitely a dark note about Malvolio. Well, I suppose you could suggest that he's moving into his darker period. It depends. Malvolio is a very interesting character, and he's often played as a Puritan, and there are sort of hints of that because there's that scene when they're in the kitchen, and Sir Toby says, "Thou think because thou art virtuous, there shall be no more cakes and ale," and so he is seen as sort of the blight on the party, and of course you get, particularly by this time, a rising Puritan opposition to things like the plays, and a greater insistence on Sabbath observance and that. So he's the killjoy, and the theatre did fight back, so that they were, that maybe that he is becoming more serious threat, because as the 16th century progresses, 17th century progresses, the Puritans were more and more successful in restraining performances on the Sundays and on what could be done. And they were very much against, one of the things they were particularly against was male players performing in female roles and female clothes. So there are all sorts of things that probably an audience at the time would see, things that, of course, that we wouldn't see now. Anything else? Yes?
To what extent do you think Shakespeare subscribed to the then Elizabethan sort of scientific theory that females were simply imperfect males?
Very little evidence of that in the plays. I'm not sure that it's an interesting one. The thing with Shakespeare is he never treats anyone as completely irrelevant. I mean, even his most minor characters get these wonderful little moments when they get to be people. They're not just figures. So I really don't know that there's anything that would say what he thought about the scientific theory at that time.
But in a sense, how widely held it was.
I mean, the doctrine of the humors and things like that, that was, that's clear, that comes through. Everybody knew that. The theory that you have, that I think is St. Thomas Aquinas that puts it forward, and I think it goes back to Aristotle as well, that might have been a more academic, more scholarly one, that it's not just what Shakespeare thought, but what he thought his audience would know as well. So there's that question that would have to be dealt with, but it's not something that I've looked at in any depth.
Wouldn't it have been a bit of a dangerous theory with Queen on the throne?
Certainly in the Elizabethan period, you don't want to be saying too much about the inferiority of women in general, because she probably had enough of that growing up, so there would be, it might well, if there was an awareness, it might well change after James came to the throne. But it's not something that I'm conscious of, and he's got some very, very powerful female characters, and certainly someone like Lady Macbeth doesn't present herself as being an incomplete male. Anybody else? Yes, at the back there. The lady behind you first, and then you. Okay. No, sorry, the lady in the purple there. Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. We're not quite sure. The theory is that it was composed for a Twelfth Night performance, but we don't have any evidence of that Twelfth Night performance. And it's called Twelfth Night or What You Will, so it may have been that it was composed for a possible Twelfth Night performance, and then that never came off. It also might be seen as the kind of topsy-turviness that you get with the 12 Days of Christmas and the Lord of Misrule, where everything is upside down. And it may be that that's feeding into it as well. But nobody knows exactly why it's called Twelfth Night. Now, the lady in front.
I was just going to say, having seen a performance of the Globe,
Mm-hmm.
it's an entirely different experience because there was the pit and the interaction between the players and the audience as well
Yeah.
as the actors between themselves.
Yes,
And
yeah.
the audience, I think, in those days was probably very important.
Oh, yes, terribly important, and probably a lot more vocal and involved than a modern audience would be. We tend to sort of sit back and look, whereas they would be more likely, and not just more likely to be involved with what was going on stage, but more involved with what was going on around them. There were people selling oranges, and there were prostitutes wandering around selling their wares, and cut purses, and all sorts of things. You know, going to the theatre was not just about the play. And there were interactions between characters on stage and in the audience. So there's documentary evidence of sort of someone getting into an argument with the player.
I was talking to my wife about your course, and of course we analyse all of this, these implications and so on. Oh yes, I see that. I suppose the audience in those days absorbed the implications. I mean, they didn't think, oh, I know what she means, or I know what
Yes,
she means.
yes.
But it was absorbed by it.
And of course, in performance, the actor can make this or that interpretation the dominant one. Even now we get that, and you get a lot of modern performances. They have to push a particular interpretation because the audience doesn't understand the language so well. You've got to remember that the Elizabethan audiences were speaking Elizabethan English. There were probably an awful lot of in-jokes and topical jokes that would have been much funnier. In fact, the punning, yes, the punning in particular. But we know a lot of things that we say, we know this is an Elizabethan joke, we just don't get it, you know. Anything else? Okay, before I let you go, there's one at the back. Oh, yes, at any time any will is mentioned, there's always potentially a pun on William Shakespeare. Then doesn't mean that the audience would have seen it, because they wouldn't have seen, you know, they didn't have that sort of Shakespeare attitude that we have. He was just another playwright. So the pun there would be for himself. Yeah. Now I have a question for you, and that's, what shall we do next year? Assuming you want me back. Because I'd like suggestions if anybody's got any ideas for next year.
Do you mean a collective sort of number of plays?
Not necessarily Shakespeare, just a topic. The problem is, I've had this before, that if I do another Shakespeare course next year, it's possible that they will reject it because they don't like to have topics that are too similar. I've had this happen before when I did something that they saw as too similar to a medieval course that I'd done before. And it was Chaucer, and I'd done something medieval the year before. And they weren't anything alike, but they still said no. So.
How bloodthirsty Jacobean things.
Yeah, well, but doesn't have to be Shakespeare. I mean, I'm not really a Shakespearean. What's that?
Oscar Wilde.
Oh, okay.
Old English writers. There's some beautiful early stuff. Both
Old English literature.
and books that are written.
Sorry? Sir Gawain, but I did Sir Gawain last year with the Arthurian one, so I don't think I want to do, I don't think I should do Arthur again yet. Old English literature is possible. Oscar Wilde, it's not really my field. It's a bit modern. I could do it, but it'd take me a little longer to work it up. Sorry? Which, Oscar Wilde? She approved of your choice. One thing I've been thinking of doing for a while, but it's going to take a little work, and the difficulty is text, and that's Old Irish literature, the Toyn and things like that. The problem is getting texts, so I'd have to work it out, but there is quite a lot of lovely stuff there, and I did Old Irish for my master's, and I haven't had much chance to use it since. And I did see a hand up the back as well. Yes, I think I see what you're getting at. I think that might be something for the year after, if we could sort of, I'll keep the Shakespeare, I think we sort of set something on the darker side of Shakespeare for sort of another year, and do something else for next year. But if you come up with anything else, put it on your evaluations. Yeah. Jane Austen would be fun. Yes, I like Jane Austen. I'm not an expert on Jane Austen, but I love Jane Austen. Yeah.
That would be nice, because you have such a lovely sense of humour.
Okay, well, we'll think about it. I'll have to start thinking about these things well in advance, because I like to get, because we have to put in the applications by June, so I have to be able to know exactly what I'm going to be doing, and know that I've got enough to say on it by June so that I can get it done and find out, and then I write the lectures. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. I hope to see you again next year.